can I just say one thing firstly? I love the name Eat Sleep Boxing Repeat.
Welcome back to ESBR Boxing's YouTube channel. I'm delighted to be joined by Danny. We are in final prediction mode for the IBF World Super Featherweight title clash happening in Yokohama, Japan. Midweek action, Wednesday, 28th of May. Danny, we are, of course, talking about the Sugar Nunez and Masanori Rikiishi clash. Both only have one defeat on their resume. Nunez, a big puncher. Rikiishi, kind of highly regarded as well. Interesting clash. One I'm looking forward to. Can't beat a bit of midweek action. And yeah, we are here to give our final predictions for that fight. So take it away, mate. What is your final prediction for Nunez Rikiishi?
Yeah, cheers, mate. It's funny. Every time this fight's mentioned and I hear Rikishi's name mentioned, I just think of the wrestler Rikishi, but don't think there's any danger of that man making super featherweight. I'm looking forward to the fight. I've not watched any of Rikishi live. I watched a bit of tape of him before this, and he's going to be a lot taller than Sugar Nunez. He looks very tall. He's listed as 5'9.5". I'd say he's taller than that. Sugar Nunez is 5'6". I think Sugar Nunez will win the fight. I was really impressed with his win over Rakimov. His punch output late in that fight was ridiculous, and Rakimov, obviously a former world champion, had just come off a really close fight with Joe Cordina. Tough fight, maybe took a bit out of him, and I think Sugar Nunez will overwhelm Rikishi in the mid to late rounds. From the tape I've watched of Rikishi, his defense looks pretty poor, to be honest. He stands very upright. He freezes a bit when he gets hit, and I think Sugar Nunez will break him down to the body and stop him sometime in the second half of the fight.
Yeah, interesting analysis there, mate. I think, yeah, fair enough. I'm the same as you. Haven't watched a whole lot of Rikishi. Have watched snippets, and yeah, he can fight her. And then you look at Sugar Nunez, and you're like, I mean, it's one of them where when you're knocking everybody over and you've got this 100% knockout streak, bar that one defeat, which is funny, but both of them had their defeats like relatively early on in like a six rounder or whatever it was.
Yeah.
You look at Nunez and like he's knocking everybody out, and then you're like, when he gets to a certain level, like there's no way he'll keep on knocking. Remember when Edgar Berlanga was knocking everyone out in one round? It was kind of like, it was like, right, as soon as he faces like proper world level, fringe world level fighters, then that knockout streak will stop. But it hasn't. It's continued, obviously, for Sugar Nunez, so he's clearly a massive puncher. I agree with you. I think he'll get the job done inside the distance. I think he'll get a 28 stoppage here, become IBF champion. Of course, former belt of Anthony Kakaches before he vacated it. And I actually find that that's one thing that I kind of jumped straight off the page at me for in favor for Rikishi was the fact that he ended up stopping Magnisi in the final
Yeah.
round, I believe, of their fight. That's the same Magnisi that Kakashi beat to win the IBO belt a few years back. And Rikishi was behind on the cards against Magnisi. I know styles make fights and all of that, but that, Kakashi got a decision away from home and he won it fairly convincingly. It was maybe closer than it was in the card because of where the fight was. Um, but that's kind of alarm bells. If you're behind on the cards against Magnisi, who is a decent fighter, fringe world level himself probably, um, you're not going to be, you're not going to outbox someone like Sugar Nunez, in my opinion. Yes, as I said, styles make fights, and that's not necessarily how it works. But that just kind of jumped out in the page at me, and I agree with what you said, mate. Your analysis was mid to late. I've got that written down on a sheet here with some of the notes I made. Nunez mid to late stoppage. I mean, I could see him start, probably ahead on the cards, but maybe fairly, maybe competitive enough early on before he kind of starts to assert his dominance in around 4, 5, 6 onwards. And yeah, wouldn't surprise me. I'd probably, if you were asking me a 2 round range, probably go around 7 or 8. For Sugar Nunez around then, that's probably where my head's at. But yeah, an interesting one. Can't beat some midweek action. And yeah, we're both going for Sugar Nunez, of course, which will be interesting. Many regard him as potentially maybe one of the best fighters in the super featherweight division already, despite not having a belt. Where do you um quickly before we round off, Danny? Obviously, given both of our predictions, we're both saying that he wins this fight. Kind of where do you want to see him go next after this? Do you think he'll maybe get a couple of those fence, kind of voluntary, mandatory kind of stuff with the IBF at 130, or do you want to see him in there with some of the other champions?
Obviously, in an ideal world, you'd always want to see unifications, although I think that's probably unlikely at this stage. Navarrete is going to be tied up in all likelihood in a rematch with Dennis Suarez. Shaki Foster and Ray Ford look like they're maybe heading on a bit of a collision course. And obviously, Sugar Nunez isn't the biggest name in the world, and he's going to be a tough fight. Regardless, I'm sure these fighters will be confident they can beat him, but the payday maybe won't reflect how tough the fight will be. So I'd maybe like to see him fight another Mexican in Eddie Hearn's stable. Rocky Hernandez obviously had a very close fight with Oshaki Foster last year until he was stopped in the last round. Fight of the year contender. I think that'd be a brilliant fight to watch. You could put that in an arena in Mexico, and I'm sure it would do very good numbers. And yeah, I don't see there's any way that would be a bad fight. So if there's no unifications to be made, I'd like to see that. I'd like to see maybe Kakachi revisit it, although I think Ant will be looking at the biggest fights possible. And as I say, Sugar Nunez probably isn't one of those.
Yeah, it's one of them where you look at Nunez and you're thinking, yeah, do you want to for limited money on that world scale, probably one of the lowest money fights out of the world champions, as we're saying, if he is to win this, probably one of the highest risk as well. So yeah, as we said, I mean, our boy, our countryman Kakachi, well, I mean, what's in it for him really? Apart from winning, becoming a two-time champion, I suppose. But you could say like, there's bigger money fights with the other champions if it kind of works out in his favor. But yeah, that Rocky Hernandez fight, that's a great one. That's a good shout. Yeah, as you said, you could bring that to Mexico. Why not? That would be a massive card there. It should be easy to make on paper as well, as you said, two Eddie Hearn fighters. So yeah, that's a good shout for me. And you kind of get sometimes you get fighters become world champion and you instantly want to see them in these big classes, but usually that isn't the case. But I think that's a good name. I'm not against that fight at all, Danny. But yeah, appreciate you jumping on, mate. That was our Sugar Nunez, Masanori, Rikiishi. Final predictions, guys. Let us know in the comments your thoughts. Who becomes IBF World Super Featherweight Champion on Wednesday, the 28th of May? Let us know in the comments. As always, drop us a like on this video and subscribe to the channel if you're not doing so already. Thanks very much for joining me, Danny. I'll speak to you again soon, mate. All the best.
Cheers, mate. Thank you.